WSIC. Tuesdays at 4, join host Patty Alvarez for The Good Soul, a show with in-depth chats with people from all walks of life. Want a sneak peek? Download the WSIC app now and stream The Good Soul podcast.
The following is a paid program and does not necessarily reflect the views of WSIC.
She's a CMS graduate, a mom, and a technology leader who believes every family deserves great schools, strong support, and a real seat at the table. From Davidson to Cornelius, Huntersville to North Charlotte, she knows our communities want the same thing. Schools that work, voices that matter, and leadership that listens. This work is personal. She grew up here. She's raising her children here. And now, she's leading here, using data, heart, and real community connection to help level up public education. So let's log in, level up, and lead forward, together. Welcome to the Community Classroom. Here's your host, CMS Board of Education District 1 Representative, Dr. Charlitta Hatch.
Welcome to the Community Classroom, the place where we slow it down, break it down, and help families feel informed, connected, and confident about navigating our schools and our community. I'm Dr. Charlitta Hatch, and today's conversation is about service, stewardship, and what it means to show up for the community over time. And I am so honored to be sharing space and sitting next to the legend, Rhonda, who served our district for 13 years. And to be able to stand on her shoulders as we lead this district forward is such an honor. And so thank you for joining us today. And so how do you feel about being here?
I'm so excited, and I'm so excited to work with you and just to look at the work that you're doing and moving things forward. I'm humbled by the things that you say because I did everything out of heart and out of love as a CMS grad, as a CMS parent. And I see so much of the things that I brought to the table in you and just much, much more. I'm very, very excited for the service that you're bringing to this district.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, Rhonda, let's talk a little bit just about you. It would be great to hear about just your background as a nurse, as a mom, just to get our listeners grounded.
So I always told people at the beginning that I was just a soccer mom that got over involved and ended up running for school board and losing my first race in 2005 and then winning in 2009. I got very involved. I was on the PTA board at Huntersville Elementary during a time that we went from basically busing to neighborhood schools. And we found that all the schools in North Mecklenburg were severely overcrowded due to not having built much up in our area. You probably had some time in trailers when you were in your earlier days at CMS. We called them learning cottages back in the day. So I just got very involved at a PTA meeting one night and said, we should go talk to the school board. And everybody said, how are we going to do that? I said, I don't know, but I'll figure it out and let everybody know. And this was back before social media. This was back in the day where you had to make phone calls and put up posters and put things in the newspaper for people to know. And the first night we had a little powwow at the Huntersville Town Board or Town Hall, and there was an overflow crowd, and the news media showed up because they're like, who are these people from North Mech that are fussing about our schools? So that's sort of where I kind of launched. Back in the day, I was the first school board member ever with a Facebook page.
Oh, wow.
They had to write policy about how to do social media because I actually had a page. So things have come so far since the early 2000s in public service.
And the word on the street is that you may have started out causing trouble as a PTA member, but people say that's a little bit of your legacy of shaking things up and making sure that North Mech is represented well and that people were going to know that we existed. So how do you feel about that?
The superintendent at the time, which Dr. James Pusley, came up and had a meeting with our group. We were called FUME, Families United for North Mecklenburg Education. The N was silent. And he came up and we had this meeting in Cornelius Elementary, and I invited all the electeds and a lot of the community leaders. And that far as we could tell, that's the first time anybody from CMS leadership had ever come up to North Mecklenburg and sat with us.
Wow.
And so I did. I kind of lit the fire, I guess, with FUME. But then my message to parents and to leadership was if we work together for what's right for kids, we should accomplish really good things. So I was a bit of a troublemaker and rebellious with a good heart.
And as late John Lewis would say, good trouble.
Good trouble. It was good trouble.
So I love what you said about, being a PTA leader and getting parents together. And one of the things that I feel is that parents don't really know how much power they have, especially to the school board and to the school system. So what do you feel like you would share with parents about that?
Well, first, I would say that myself and you are both CMS parents. And
Yes.
probably part of the reason I sat in that big red chair and you now do is because you cared so much about your children's education. We just took it to a different level. But every parent should understand that they have a voice. So I would make sure that they're looking, that they find out who they can speak to, follow the chain of command. But there's always a way to get involved in your child. But the best way ever, we both know, the best way for a parent to be involved is to sit down with that child every day and ask them what they did that day. Not what did you have a good day, but what did you do today? Let's read together and spend time with their child and get into that school as much as you can with your schedule, with your work schedule and home schedule.
One question that I've been starting to ask my son is what has happened today that's a little bit out of the ordinary? And it could be good or bad, but it allows me to hear about who got pushed out the recess or who got sent out of class, to kind of just double click on some of those things. And I found that to be super helpful. So when you look back on your time serving in the district, what is something that you're most proud of?
So back in the day, around 2011, we were having significant budget cuts, and we had a RIF, reduction in force, had to cut teachers' pay, teachers' positions, and the proposal in the budget was to cut middle school sports completely out, eliminate middle school sports. You were an athlete, I know. My kids were young. They were in middle school and high school at that point. But I said, there's just so much motivation that comes in middle school when kids are really struggling. That's just the awkward time for a child. And, having a soccer coach or a sports coach, being involved in a team might be the thing that makes the difference to keep them engaged and help them academically, push themselves academically to get good enough grades to stay on the team. And I just couldn't stomach it. So I really worked together with several people. And Coach Joe White, who was on the board at that time, worked with me because he was obviously so much into sports. And we saved middle school sports. And we held rallies all over Charlotte, and we got people involved, and ended up being that the Hornets provided some money, and that's actually when they started charging ticket prices to get into some middle school events, and they started having some fees associated. But I was afraid that if middle school sports went away, they would never, ever come back.
That is an amazing something to be proud of. And you think about now with mental health, the fact that you used your voice and did that is absolutely fantastic. So we are going to get ready to let the bell ring for a commercial break, and we look forward to picking it back up on the other side.
We'll be right back with the Community Classroom, community perspectives, school success stories, and education insight you can use. Only on WSIC.
See, I told you, winter was just on vacation. It's back in full force. You could really feel it rolling in on Sunday. Kicking off a new work week, we're dry, plenty of sunshine, but it's chilly for our Monday. Upper 40s, we'll go into the 20s overnight. Then make our way back into the 50s Tuesday and Wednesday, but we'll cool right back down. 40s again by Thursday and Friday. That's your forecast from the WSIC Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
Take your life by the reins and let the horses at Willow Equine heal and empower you. Located in Mooresville, our services help with trauma, anxiety, depression, and addiction. Love life again. Visit willowequine.com today.
Looking for something to do close to home?
Here is your WSIC community calendar. Music lovers won't want to miss Songwriter Girl, the music of Carole King, on January 17th at 7 p.m. at the Charles Mack Citizen Center. Acclaimed singer-songwriter Kirsty Manna brings the timeless songs of Carole King to life in a performance inspired by the iconic Tapestry era. It's a must-see night of classic hits and unforgettable melodies. Songwriter Girl, the music of Carole King, on January 17th at 7 p.m. at the Charles Mack Citizen Center.
Calling all superheroes on January 15th. It's Marvel Trivia Night at Royal Bliss Brewing in Denver, starting at 7 p.m. Bring your team and test your knowledge of iconic heroes, villains, and unforgettable MCU moments. It's free to play, prizes are up for grabs, and the fun is guaranteed. Assemble on January 15th at Marvel Trivia Night at Royal Bliss Brewing in Denver.
And finally, on January 19th, honor the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. with a meaningful, cross-generational experience at the David B. Waymer Recreation Center in Huntersville. From 3 to 5 p.m., explore a mobile museum featuring African-American artifacts and civil rights memorabilia from the Thankful Heritage Museum. A time to learn, reflect, and connect through history. Honoring the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., January 19th, 3 to 5 p.m. at the David B. Waymer Recreation Center in Huntersville.
For even more local events,
Community happenings,
and Lake Norman news,
visit liveworkplaylkn.com.
it's your go-to source for what's happening
Where to be,
and what's next around the lake.
live,
Work,
play,
LKN.
.com. We're back with more The Community Classroom, breaking down what's happening across Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools with Dr. Charlitta Hatch, right here on WSIC.
Well, welcome back. We were just talking to the legend Rhonda Cheek, and she was sharing with us that middle school sports was on the table due to financial reasons to be cut, and her advocacy and being able to pull in the public and the partnership with the Hornets really saved middle school sports. And now those of us who go and have to pay know why we're doing that, and hopefully feel a little bit better about paying those ticket prices, because the alternative could have been middle school sports not being there. I do have to give a privilege note because I know my husband is listening, and you called me an athlete, and I love that. So thank you so much for calling me an athlete. He would argue that I was on the debate team and on student council, and that would not be athletics. But I told him I was captain of the debate team, and I got a varsity letter for that. And he does not respect that that is true athletics, but I think mental sports is a sport. So thank you for recognizing my athletic abilities.
Yeah, during COVID, when we were discussing extracurriculars and sports, we included all of those type of activities as things that they are mental athletics.
I got a letter.
You
A
got
letter
a
in
varsity
debate.
letter, yeah.
I did.
And the time and effort that you and your parents put into you being a participant in those activities is amazing.
Yep. I'm like, you went to states in basketball. I went to states in debate. I mean, it's the same to me. But I want to ask you, do you have one more thing that you might be kind of most proud of? And I think it's hard because you served for so long, but is there another thing that might stand out for you?
Well, it also involves sports. But during COVID, I was a pretty strong advocate of doing whatever we could for the mental support of our mental health of our students, and somehow to keep them engaged and to want to stay at CMS and not leave. And there was a point that staff recommended to end all of our sports competitions in January of 2021. They were going to stop every season as it was. And I had some athletic directors call me and say, it's a done deal. They're going to stop everything on Friday. And I said, that's just not acceptable. Kids, this is going to damage students. And just not that, but the opportunities for advancement and scholarships was also going to be just dried up. And I spent 72 hours lobbying my fellow board members, and I led a little public statement to tell staff that that was not an acceptable way to treat high school students. And I had 6 board members stand up with me. Two still wouldn't support it, but I had 6 stand up with me. So 7 of us told staff that is not acceptable, and you need to let sports continue. And the coolest call I got was from the diving board, or from the diving center in Raleigh, after the Huff High School team won the state championships in swimming and diving. And they called to thank me. And they said, we would not be here today because our season was about to end. And it was a very cool moment for me to get that call as it happened.
And I think that speaks to the criticality of what you are able to do as a board member. Sometimes it's not the maybe individual administrative thing, but as you're looking through the strategic impact of something that's widespread across the district, it's like, how do you pull folks together to make this impact across the district? And I think that's one thing that people may or may not really understand. It's not an isolated incident that you can really solve for, but it's really those kind of patterns over time. Another thing I think is interesting is that it takes 5 board members to do anything. So how did you feel sometimes when you had something that you were super passionate about, but you couldn't necessarily kind of whip those 5 votes?
Well, there's probably times, especially in my earlier days, that I probably let that frustration be a little more visible in what I did. But I did start to learn that a lot of it is work that's done way before you get to the dais that night. It takes a long time. And I really found, kind of unusual connections with different board members, people that you would have thought there's no way those two will ever be an alliance together. And I laugh about Dr. Jones and I would go to the mat for Dr. Ruby Jones, and as like she would with me, and I could always count on her to be supportive. And she was the day that with that COVID vote on high school sports, she's like, I 100% agree with you. We both put aside any other differences and just really focused on what we really thought was best for kids. And when you have other board members that truly have that heart, it's easier to find commonality and make votes happen.
I think that's also something that's so important, and I hope I keep as a guiding light is, keep students at the center of all decisions. Because then, to your point, no matter how you get there, you'll get there with the right answer and kind of can sleep well at night.
Absolutely.
So what's something that people would be surprised or may not realize about kind of what it means to be a board member behind the scenes that people don't see?
We don't run the schools.
Mm-hmm.
We don't decide the bus schedule. I can't call your bus driver and complain to him that you were late. He was late that day. I don't tell the cooks the pizza's not cooked well. It's oversight. It's not management. So that's a little bit different. People really think we run the schools. They don't realize that we're a policy-making board with oversight for the budget. And we don't hire people. We have oversight. So it's a very fine line. There's also a fine line between advocacy and the actual act of serving.
So why do you think the perception exists? Because many board members, have talked about this, now almost probably for 2 decades, about the kind of perception of what we can do versus what we do. Why do you think that perception exists?
I always pondered that as well. And then I watched a great TV show, I forget the name of it, but the one fellow was serving on the city council, supposedly like up in Philly or in Pennsylvania. And they literally did hands-on administrative work. And so I think Charlotte is a melting pot with people from all over, especially from the Midwest and the Northeast. I think in a lot of areas, the school boards may have a different role and not just be a policy-setting body. So I think when they hear school board, they literally do think that's the leadership team for schools. It's just a misperception. You probably get this too. I would get calls from all over the country, people that said, hey, I graduated from there 15 years ago and I need to get my transcripts, or I'm moving to the area. What schools should my child go to? And because our numbers are listed on the website, people think that we're actually the one that you can do all that with.
And did you find that people, did you explain it to them, or did you just say, I'll take care of it, and then kind of did the behind the scenes work? Like, how did you handle kind of those types of issues?
For things that were very common, I had some phone numbers ready to give people for things that they needed. I tried to handle things that were more policy related. I tried to stay out of things and not interfere with the chain of command. My first question back to parents when they would call, I've had parents that wanted to change grades. I had a student that was suspended and mom wanted me to get him permission to go to the prom while he was on suspension. And I said, have you followed the chain of command? Who have you talked to? That was usually my question. Who have you talked to about this? Because I want to advocate for you, but I need to know, have you followed the steps? Are you going from, I'm mad about this happened at school today and you've never talked to anybody at the school, you've gone straight to me? Or have you really worked your way through all the steps and you're still not getting resolution to your problem? And then can I help with that?
No, that's good. I think that's something that I'm trying to kind of delicately balance of, how am I going to kind of show up and respond? So that was helpful. Do you have any kind of advice or kind of lessons learned that you would share, particularly as you have served this district?
You got to have thick skin. This is the hard part, and I still looking back, you have to know that moving the needle is so slow, and the things that you want to get done may take longer than you want them to take. And sometimes it takes a long, long time to get anything to change. It's frustrating, but I would tell you to try to have patience and just to try to enjoy some of the small stuff too. Some of my best memories are when I would get called during like reading week and come in and I would wear a Dr. Seuss hat and read books to kids. And shaking hands at graduation when I could see the joy on a child's face. So find those things during your service that can bring you the joy and remind you of why you've put yourself out there, because this is a thankless, hard job. And it is a job, even though it's not very well paid.
Well, yeah, and I think that's the other thing where, I think there's the quote that says something about it's easy to, be on the outside of the arena and be a
Yes.
critic,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? And it does feel like that people only want to do bad news. They want to tell you what you're doing wrong, what you're not doing. And you're like, man, I'm at least trying. Can you not see my heart and see that I am at least trying? And, there's not a lot of grace and space, understanding that it's people's kids. And so you understand why people are so passionate, but it's like, I didn't do it, but I'm going to try to figure it out. But, let me get a chance without kind of demonizing me in the process.
I was lucky in my early years because social media wasn't there. There was a comment section in the Charlotte Observer, and I just didn't read it. But social media was not there. Wasn't an immediate response. Like, I used to have to make myself not watch the feed on social media when our meetings were going on because people would like, she's rolled her eyes, or she's eating something, or just the things people would say during the meeting.
And you're like, it's 5 hours.
Exactly.
It's 5
hours. Of course, I'm drinking something from my Stanley cup.
I might have to go to the bathroom.
Exactly.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean I don't care,
Right.
about kind of what the situation is. I appreciate that advice of being patient and finding the joy because I think that actually could be a message that we share with all of our families. Like, why is it magical here in CMS and all of the different things that you're able to offer and to be able to see your kids grow? And it's not going to be perfect, and have a little patience, but find the joy.
Life isn't perfect, but we can find joy in every day.
Yes, I love that. So we're getting ready for the next bell to ring. So I'm looking forward to seeing you all after our next hallway break.
Stay with us. The community classroom continues in moments with Dr. Charlitta Hatch, right here on WSIC. Local starts here.
See, I told you, winter was just on vacation. It's back in full force. You could really feel it rolling in on Sunday. Kicking off a new work week, we're dry, plenty of sunshine. It's chilly for our Monday. Upper 40s, we'll go into the 20s overnight, then make our way back into the 50s Tuesday and Wednesday, but we'll cool right back down. 40s again by Thursday and Friday. That's your forecast from the WSIC Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
I'm Bryce Johnson with this Unpacking It Sports and Faith Minute. During his Hall of Fame career, former NFL center Kevin Mawai earned the nickname Mr. Durability. due to his ability to always find a way to play in games instead of sitting out. Durability is not only an important quality as an NFL center, but it is also critical in our own lives. What do we do when we encounter pressure or damage? Do we give up and sit out, or do we endure and remain durable by trusting God? In James, it says, God blesses those who patiently endure testing and temptation. Afterward, they will receive the crown of life that God has promised to those who love him. Would we describe ourselves as resilient, strong, and someone who continues to show up and persevere through each challenge? Today, let's be intentional to develop a durable faith that is resilient and endures through tests and hardships by trusting God. I'm Bryce Johnson, and you can unpack that. For more, go to unpackingit.com.
If you're over 40 and plan to retire someday, the window to protect what you've built may be smaller than you realize. As retirement moves from someday to on the horizon, protecting what you've built becomes just as important as growing it. And that's where Noble Gold Investments comes in. They help investors reduce risk by adding gold and silver to their portfolios. Visit noblegoldinvestments.com, noblegoldinvestments.com. Past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals involves risk. Consult with your tax or financial professional before making investment decisions.
Spotless cleaning. How can we make your day spotless? Yes, we make not just toilets spotless, but also counters, cabinets, and kitchens. We make your whole house, your whole day spotless. My grandparents taught me the details, not the things, make your home and your life luxurious. Yes, they raised me in Brazil, and that's why we will never charge you extra for baseboard. Let me help you be a diva a few hours a week. SpotlessCleaningNC.com.
Don't miss a thing. Download the WSIC News app today. WSIC. Local starts here.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. There's a new member of the $4 trillion club. It's Alphabet. That's after the tech giant teamed up with Walmart to link users of Google's Gemini AI technology to items at Walmart and Sam's Club stores. And it teamed up with Apple to use Gemini to power Apple Intelligence, including its upgraded Siri digital assistant. Shares of Apple, Alphabet, and Walmart all rose higher, while elsewhere on Wall Street, earlier losses stemming from President Trump ramping up his attacks on Fed Chair Jerome Powell were turned around, and the Dow and the S&P both closed at fresh all-time highs. The Dow today up 86, the Nasdaq up 63, the S&P added 11. Citigroup will cut about 1,000 jobs this week, part of a plan announced 2 years ago to cull 20,000 workers by the end of this year. And after 6 years off of store shelves, beer giant Anheuser-Busch is bringing back Busch Light Apple Beer sometime this year. Tom Busby, Bloomberg Radio.
Friendly reminder, don't brake when you see the lake.
WSIC. Local starts here.
We're back with more The Community Classroom, breaking down what's happening across Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools with Dr. Charlitta Hatch, right here on WSIC.
Welcome back, class. So we just wrapped up talking about patience and joy. And so I'm a little bit curious now to just talk about the district overall, District 1 specifically. So we know that's North Charlotte, Huntersville, Cornelius, and Davidson. What are some of the things that you've seen kind of change over time? And what are some of the things that you've seen kind of stay the same?
Well, we've had a lot of schools built in the last 15 years, and there's a lot on deck. Some of our really older buildings are going to be replaced, and that's very exciting for me. We've got great schools in District 1. We've got some great magnets up here now because for a very long time we had no magnets in our area, and kids had to drive clear to Charlotte to go to some of the magnets to get the special kind of courses they wanted, which we could talk about the impact of the magnet lottery another minute. I think there's a lot of commitment to public education from the electeds in the 3 northern towns, and they've gotten a lot more engaged in CMS over the last several years or last 2 decades than what they were. And I think that's a big thing. I think you've got some good partners that will help you with advocacy. But we've also got a lot of stiff competition from some really well-known charter schools in our area. I think District 1 and District 6 are the 2 that are most impacted by charter schools. And that's a big deal because you've got charter schools pulling kids from schools that are so phenomenal. I'm like, why would you leave that school? You're one of the best schools in the state. And that was always a source of frustration for me. But I think people get frustrated with the size of CMS and responsiveness. And sometimes I think that administration doesn't necessarily have its eye on what I would call their customer service, which is taking care of families and parents, communicating well to parents.
Yes, so true. So for those that don't know, I just defended my dissertation, and my work was really on, why families choose or don't choose CMS, and specifically about kind of family engagement and the school choice process and how families make their decisions. So I'm super passionate about this topic. And so last week, it was like a big glaring light kind of in, my face. And I'm like, this is what I have been researching, and I know exactly why, parents are passionate about this. And school choice is so deeply personal. And I actually have been trying to reframe it and just say choosing schools, right? Because school choice in itself, that word is
There's a
triggering,
connotation, yeah.
right? And people automatically go to vouchers, and you're like, no, as a parent, I'm trying to decide what school is best suited for my child. And so when my son was entering kindergarten, I visited 17 schools to determine where to put him. And one, while I was going through the process, which is why I got into the work that I was studying, so I'm like, I had the privilege to do that, to actually go to these open houses, volunteer at different schools. I sat in different kindergarten classes. Like I wanted to go to schools that I really liked when it wasn't an open house, because I wanted to see how it felt. I wanted to visibly see how Black boys were treated when people thought people weren't watching. And so I had all of these different things that I was looking at. And it really wasn't about like, is it private, is it public, is it charter, and where are my taxpayer dollars going? It really was about like centering my child. And so I know how it feels to wait to find out of all of your choices. You've made the spreadsheet. You've been talking about it with your partner if you have one. You might have called your mom, all of these things to find out if your priority choices were given to you. Because you're, as a parent, especially as a first-time mom, and especially with kindergarten, you feel like it's your whole child's life is impacted by this one email.
You're ready to send your child off on a rocket to the moon, and you want to make sure he's in the right rocket.
Yes, and never mind about being able to transfer or anything like that, right? Like it's just kind of like you just are waiting. And so last week, we have been getting tons of emails as a board around parent experience with the school choice lottery, and knowing that it was a new system that was rolled out, and parents may or may not have been confused on the instructions. The district may or may not have been clear on the instructions, not necessarily knowing the root cause, but ultimately still not feeling good about whatever the experience was. And now, as a newer board member, like trying to navigate how do you solve that? Because ultimately, I think your words were great and spot on. It's about the customer service, not about whether someone did something wrong or right.
It's not about who messed up or was there even a problem. What it is on social media right now, what I'm seeing is a lot of parents are really upset about however this process happened. So clearly, if the process worked well or worked right, the outcome was not anticipated. Parents didn't see this coming. So it really, to me, you want to get back to what the root cause was, and you can hyper-analyze the actual problem or who's at fault. But really, the biggest thing is, how do we fix this for parents? That's where the only focus really should be. Let's fix this for parents. And when we do that, we should hopefully then backtrack and fix the process so it doesn't happen again. But I think you just have to have a mindset of, how do we fix this so parents are having the best experience here at CMS? Because, all the charter schools have their lotteries this month as well. And those don't always go well, because I hear all that kind of negativity as well about how the lottery was rigged or different things at different schools. But it really is about making sure parents feel their voices were heard, and that their voices were heard, and then they took that back and they made something better because of it.
One of the things that my husband and I learned in marriage counseling was, do you want to be right or do you want to be loved?
Exactly.
And it's like, I know sometimes when I'm talking to him and I'm like, you know what, you're right. Okay, now that we have established that, I still feel how I feel.
Yes.
So now can we work through my feelings? But just want to underscore, you're right. Because it's not about being right if people still feel the way that they feel.
I've said the same thing to mine. I'm like, that doesn't matter. I'm just telling you, maybe I totally misinterpreted thing, but it
Yeah,
still
I
made me
hit the
feel really, really
garage.
bad.
Okay.
I still feel I'm hurt. My feelings are hurt, whether they should be or not. They are. So, we've just got to come back to that core value of parents matter. And when they're freaking out about something, we need to figure out what it is, how do we fix it, and then how do we, after we fix the immediate problem, then we go back and do the root cause analysis and figure out how do we keep it from happening the next time. But right now, you got to triage the actual problem. I think you talked about me being a nurse. That's where a little bit of my nursing kicks in, because I'm always like, you're trying to do open heart surgery right now. I'm just trying to actually put the patient's rhythm back in place. I'm triaging where we are right now. We need to go back and figure out all the other diagnostics after we stabilize the patient. So that's always my my thing is triage and stabilize. Then you figure out how to keep it from happening again.
And I think that's also just a nugget of why it matters to have such a diverse skills on the board. You have that scientific brain that's like, let's just stabilize before we try to go have open heart surgery. I think the other thing that, through my research and the way I defined it is that parents are the customer and students are the consumer. And as you start to think about that customer service model that you're referencing, it's like, are you actually looking at the different types of customers? Because if you define customer just as parent, then you're missing it, right? But then the different experiences that parents need. And in my day job, I always give the example of Taco Bell and Chick-fil-A. And at Taco Bell, you are just like trying your best to not go there. It's like you're only going there at like 2:00 in the morning because you have to. You don't want to go inside. The floors are sticky. You don't even know if you have real meat, but like you'll just eat it if you have to.
Or your 13-year-old son wants a dozen tacos and you drive him through the drive-thru. Yeah.
And then there's Chick-fil-A. It's bright. You want to go inside. They take your order. They see your kid is crying. They're like, you know what? Just go sit down. We'll meet you there. They bring your tray. They refill your cup. You can't even tip them. And it feels like you're having a restaurant experience, but it's fast food. And I'm like, do you want to be Taco Bell or do you want to be Chick-fil-A?
My pleasure.
Yes, and I want to be Chick-fil-A. And so the problem I think that you have is that interesting role that you're in as a board member where you're hearing these community voices. You don't want to be a glorified customer service agent. You want to be a change agent. So how did you kind of navigate and do that dance?
You wear all those hats and you just have to mix them up. Staff sometimes didn't want to see me coming, or they didn't want to know I was on the way because they knew that I was or they knew things were happening in District 1 and they're like, oh, we're going to hear from Rhonda soon. But I just developed a really good relationship. I know there's all kinds of things put in place now of communicating directly to staff. That's kind of it's a tough thing because I used to do it a lot and it wasn't really probably the best thing. It's tough because I was a fixer.
Yep. And I think that's the thing that's interesting about chain of command in order to have good customer service. But then what is your role when you jump line as a board member? The same way you tell your parents not to jump line. So, this is going to be interesting to solve. The bell is ringing, so we'll see you on the other side.
Stay with us. The community classroom continues in moments with Dr. Charlitta Hatch, right here on WSIC. Local starts here.
Well, it's a cold one around Lake Norman on the way overnight. Temperatures will fall into the mid and upper 20s around the lake, but we do have a pretty quick warm-up on the way for the afternoons. We'll make it into the upper 50s. Plenty of sunshine for Tuesday, near 60 with a few extra clouds Wednesday. And then we cool it back down again, struggling to get out of the 30s by Thursday. That's your forecast from the WSIC Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
Looking for something to do close to home?
Here is your WSIC community calendar. Music lovers won't want to miss Songwriter Girl, the music of Carole King, on January 17th at 7 p.m. at the Charles Mack Citizen Center. Acclaimed singer-songwriter Kirsty Manna brings the timeless songs of Carole King to life in a performance inspired by the iconic Tapestry era. It's a must-see night of classic hits and unforgettable melodies. Songwriter Girl, the music of Carole King, on January 17th at 7 p.m. at the Charles Mack Citizen Center.
Calling all superheroes on January 15th. It's Marvel Trivia Night at Royal Bliss Brewing in Denver, starting at 7 p.m. Bring your team and test your knowledge of iconic heroes, villains, and unforgettable MCU moments. It's free to play, prizes are up for grabs, and the fun is guaranteed. Assemble on January 15th at Marvel Trivia Night at Royal Bliss Brewing in Denver.
And finally, on January 19th, honor the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. with a meaningful, cross-generational experience at the David B. Waymer Recreation Center in Huntersville. From 3 to 5 p.m., explore a mobile museum featuring African-American artifacts and civil rights memorabilia from the Thankful Heritage Museum. A time to learn, reflect, and connect through history. Honoring the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., January 19th, 3 to 5 p.m. at the David B. Waymer Recreation Center in Huntersville.
For even more local events,
Community happenings,
and Lake Norman news,
visit liveworkplaylkn.com.
it's your go-to source for what's happening
Where to be,
and what's next around the lake.
live,
Work,
play,
LKN.
.com.
Is your to-do list overwhelming? DIY gone awry? From leaky faucets, squeaky doors, and rooms in need of a makeover, House Doctors of Mooresville handles it all. Free estimates, quality materials, and a one-year guarantee. We fix it, you relax. Visit housedoctors.com/Mooresville.
Welcome back to the Community Classroom, hosted by Dr. Charlitta Hatch. Insight, context, and community voices, only on WSIC. Local starts here.
Welcome back, class. It was so, I think, interesting in our conversation around customer service and all of those things as it relates to parents. And I think it starts with us as board members, like keeping, students centered, but then also realizing that we were elected to serve, our community and, responding in that way. One thing that I'm trying to be committed to is respond to every single email, and to follow up if it's a specific concern, to just make sure that it's been resolved so it doesn't feel like either the district or me are black holes. Did you have any of those type of guidelines or things that you put in place?
I tried to acknowledge every email. To respond, I kind of had the cut and paste answer when it was one problem that was just over and over and over. But you try to make them personal without it being a black hole of time for you, because you still are a mom and you're a wife and you're an employee. And school board is not a full-time job, doesn't pay as a full-time job, and it can become a full-time job if you let it. And so I would limit the amount of time I would spend on emails and such, and I would try to answer them in bulk. It's especially hard when the emails are very emotion-driven and they're really not wanting. Sometimes I would just say, thanks for sharing your thoughts, because they really were just venting, and that's okay. Sometimes a parent needs a place to vent. And I would just say, thanks for sharing your thoughts. I understand what you're saying, and I am, going to follow up with, and forward this to staff. They weren't really asking sometimes for a response. They were just needing to know I'm not happy about something.
So speaking of that, one thing that I have heard, or maybe two things, of some of the most difficult decisions or processes to run as a school board member, so I'd be interested to see if you agree, was the name changes and rezoning or redistricting. Did you find those to be difficult, or are there other things as a school board member that you thought were more difficult?
Well, I served during COVID, so let's just eliminate that whole block of time, because it was like the most chaotic time I could ever imagine. School boundaries and boundary decisions, and just the whole process of magnet schools and where are they going to be is probably the heaviest decision. And the other one I hope you don't have to deal with was new superintendent searches. That was a huge, huge situation, very, very challenging. The school naming, not as much of a thing for me because I, again, try to listen to the community. And as the community's telling us what they think the name of a school should be, I'm just probably not going to argue with it too much. But I definitely think boundaries, student assignment boundaries, and school, school programming choices. Because we've been through several iterations of what magnets are in different locations over the years.
So, how did you handle getting the community voices? Let's say on the kind of rezoning.
One thing that I think you're at a big advantage of some school board members is you've lived here, you know the streets and you know the roads. You can't just draw circles around schools. I always tell people that if we could just draw little blocks around every school and it was just like a little concentric thing, they don't work out that way. The schools, the property that we can buy is in certain locations. So it's always a challenge to figure out how you're going to do it. And you know your community. And I think you can share your voice because there's going to be some new boundaries that are going to be drawn. Staff downtown doesn't necessarily know traffic patterns. They did one that was really crazy. I'm like, y'all can't do that. People are going to be driving backwards and turning around and doing illegal moves to get to that school. So you need to make sure you share, but I think they hold a ton of meetings. They need to do as much electronically and Zoom. I mean, a meeting doesn't always mean we have to sit down in the school cafeteria, but we need to look for ways to engage as many voices and opinions on things as possible and really make sure when boundaries are being drawn, we're looking at the community impact of that boundary and we're looking at subdivisions and neighborhoods because we don't need to break up natural communities. We should not break them up. Communities are the fundamental part of this society.
So you mean like a family on one street going to one school
Yes.
and on the next street over, it's a completely different school. I think we've all had those
Yes.
experiences.
I mean,
It's like, how did that slip through the cracks?
how did that? Yeah, and we fixed some of those. We fixed a few over time because we were like, that should have never happened. So that was always the most challenging. But, and it's funny when everybody wants a new school to be built, but nobody wants to be the ones to move to the new school. Or everybody wants to go to the new school because they don't want the old building. So it's there's so many emotions around it, and it's hard to just look at the data.
So, as a parent who actually was a school board member for most of one of your children's, school
Time.
career, what do you feel that is missing from parents as far as like something that you wish they knew just as a parent about the district, how to navigate schools or anything like that?
I don't think parents really realize how much goes on because, and maybe that there's part of that that's okay. Because I always would tell parents, you can worry about all these other things, but what really is the most important thing is what happens when the door closes and your student is in a classroom, and it's that relationship with that teacher that's the most important one out of all these. So it's hard to tell parents to focus on a bigger picture because they're just not going to. We could talk about that, but I think the biggest thing is whatever you're doing, find a way to be engaged. And you've got a doctorate in that. An engaged parent means a success. There's much more chance for success with the child. And being an engaged parent doesn't mean you have to be the PTA president. It doesn't mean you have to take off work to do things. An engaged parent, there's so many ways now electronically you can be engaged. It may mean that you're just on the text group with the teacher and that you read with your child every day. And that you ask, you learn from somebody like you, what questions should I ask my child at the end of the school day? I think that parents underestimate their role in that three-pronged education, which is parent, teacher, student. Parents, it's a three-legged stool, and if one of those legs is gone, the stool falls over. I don't think parents always appreciate their role.
Chair Sneed was on last week, and she said, if you think the district is going to give your child everything they need, then you're mistaken. And I do think that that's part of it. Like, how do we make sure everybody can see themselves in and outside of the district?
A child, I can't remember the numbers anymore, but we have them for 6 hours a day, 5 days a week. That's like 30-ish hours a week, 30 out of their whole week.
Yep.
Most of their hours are not with us. And we need parents to make sure those hours are in learning enrichment, and that they're doing things with their child during those times that can support what the teachers are trying to do in the classrooms. You can make, sorting your Hot Wheels cars into an educational lesson. I used to do that with my son. I made him sort them by colors and then tell me how many of each color he had. And he never realized it was all math. We were not playing Hot Wheels. We were doing math. So you can make learning fun, but it has to be, the home life has to reflect the school.
I completely agree. So what excites you about the future of District 1?
Oh my goodness, the new schools coming are very exciting for me. A new North Mech after all these years. My husband is a graduate of North Mech from class of, I think, 89. He's probably going to be mad. That might not be the right year, but I think it's 89. And the new Huntersville, where my two oldest, all three of my kids went to Huntersville Elementary, and the new Cornelius. Those are very exciting. I think what excites me the most is now having a school board member who's got their feet on the street and they're out engaged in the community, and you're looking actively for things and ways to get parents to be engaged. I think if there's anyone that can share the message of how important parental engagement is, it's you. And that makes me very excited for the future.
Thank you for that. Thank you. What do you hope evolves?
Well, parental engagement, number one. I wish that District 1, all the parents out there, would make CMS, would at least have it be on their choice card. If it's not their top choice, that's okay. But I want them to at least give CMS a chance, because there's so much. Don't listen to people out in the community. Come and see the school yourself. Talk to actual people that are attending the school. Social media can be a great thing, and it can also be so detrimental.
Get off next door.
Yes. One parent that's mad, and when you get to the root cause, they're just mad because their student got, suspended for selling pot in the bathroom, and then they tell everybody how awful the school was, and you're like, wait a minute, you're not a good example. So go see the schools, go talk to actual people at the schools to learn about them, and give CMS a chance. I think there's so many amazing schools in District 1.
I agree with you. I think, again, how you choose schools are so personal. It's so personal. We just want to be on your list.
Yes.
And right now, there are families where it won't even make their list. And then for District 1, we want you to have CMS on your list. So I love that. What do you hope continues?
Well, I hope that the strong engagement by our local officials in all the 3 northern towns, and I do know like the Charlotte City Council and the County Commission members are engaged as well, but District 1 is unique because we have 3 towns that are pretty big, and their elected officials are really, even though they don't have any voice, their advocacy is a huge, huge step for CMS and a big benefit. So I hope that continues. And District 1 is the best district. I know there's people that think theirs are, but we really do have the best district.
I mean, it is called 1 for a reason.
And we are the top of the crown of Mecklenburg. I mean, we are the top. So we're sitting up here, and we've got it all up here.
Well, thank you so much, Rhonda, for being here, sharing your wisdom and your perspectives with us. It has been an honor to share this space with you. Please remember that the community classroom reminds us that leadership doesn't always come with the microphone. Sometimes it looks like steady service over time. Thank you for logging in with us today.
Thank you.
Great radio doesn't end here. Catch the full episode and dive into our archives on the WSIC News app.
WSIC 105.9 FM, 100.7 FM, 1400 AM, Statesville, Lake Norman's home for local talk radio. WSIC, local starts here.